Hey, am I finally on? Computer decided to run an update right as I was turning it on. So, all right. Man, did you guys hear that big thunder clap there about 2 minutes ago? Goodness gracious. Yeah, I was driving in here and it wasn't much rain, but boy, I was sitting here at my desk and big thunder. So, all right. Well, this thing running okay? Let's get some shout outs here. Hey, Tina Berg, congratulations on being first comment tonight. And glad you and Mike are here. Hey, Scott. Hey, Teresa. Hey, Daryl. Hey, Suze. Amy. Yeah, the weather was nice earlier, but it's not doing so great right now. At least it's warm. So, hey, Jess Matt, glad you're here. And let's see here. Who else we got? Joyce Koenig is here, so the party can get started. Amy, Joyce would like to know what you had for supper. I mean, usually we get a report. I didn't see anything here. Hey, Bill Haar. Hey, Parker. How you doing, buddy? Pork tenderloin and sweet potatoes. Man, Amy, you eat well. Hey, Joe and Marcia. This is your second go-round of YouTube videos today. I wondered if a bunch of people just got kicked off because of the storm. Our numbers just plummeted. Hopefully we maintain connection. If however far I make it when the power goes out, that's where we're just going to be. So, hey Sherry Louth, good job on the video today. Thank you. You and Jess did a nice job on that. And let's see. Angie says it's raining at her house now. And all right, Joyce is going to be out to see the Dillons next week. Cheryl had pork tenderloin on the grill. Yeah, you must have beat the rain tonight, Cheryl. Hey, Miriam. Amy says, don't ever drink energy drinks. I'm going to throw that little lesson in for free. Don't drink energy drinks. They're bad for you in every conceivable way. Hey, Dave and Amy. Hi, Scott. Hey, Teresa. Yeah, I'm praying we don't lose power too, Tina. And if we do, we'll just pick up there tomorrow night. Lost electric in Sydney, did they today? Okay. Hey, Crystal and Bill. And all right. Yeah, I used to sit on the porch and watch storms. I used to do that too, Cheryl. And hey, Margie and Doug, glad to see you guys tonight. Hi, Doug. Hey, Linda Burkholder. All right, we're going to give everybody a chance to jump in here tonight. Hi, Jan. Glad you're here too. Give everybody a chance to jump in. I've been watching the delivery on the rest of our books. They're supposed to be delivered today. I don't have them yet. They were departing from Columbus this afternoon, so hopefully I'll get them tomorrow. And because I would like to be able to distribute them on Sunday to those of you who want them. If you can get a digital copy of the book, I'd really prefer that you did that. But any of you who need actual copies, I've given out 2, and I've got 2 here. I got 2 extra ones, and I hope 7 more coming. So, all right. Suppose I had an announcement I had to make tonight. Anybody remember if I had an announcement? Was there something I was supposed to say tonight? I feel like I'm supposed to announce something. I don't remember what it was. I'm looking around my desk here. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. So, all right. Where is everybody? 2 of you here. Where's everybody at? Let's see. Where are we at? Is it Daniel chapter 10? Is that where we left off last night? I think it was. Daniel chapter 10. Oh, yes. We're going to talk about spirit princes tonight. Everybody's got a spirit prince. All right. Hey, the weather's terrible. We always have numbers up on bad weather nights. So where is everybody? The Sunday surprise. Yes, that was what it was. I'm still working on the Sunday surprise. Um, we did take kind of an L on this one today. Joe Sutton, thank God for Joe, came over and tried to help me get the computer going with the camera, and it just was not happening. So I don't know that we're going to be able to hook up from the sanctuary, at least with our current setup. So we're going to have a conversation about whether or not the surprise Sunday night can happen. And I know I told you I wanted to do one of these live streams from the sanctuary, and that hasn't changed. I do want to do one. However, there's a lot of things I want to do that are not going to happen, and that looks to be one of them, at least this week. So the camera and the computer simply do not like each other. And no matter how Joe and I tried to hook that thing up or what kind of software we used to try to get it to do what it was supposed to do, it just was not happening. So we're going to have to do some work on that. So anyways, we're working on that. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we're still progressing toward that goal, and we'll see if we actually make it. So also, did I mention last night we're waiting for a few more people? And hey, Tim and Candy, glad you're here. You haven't missed anything yet. Can you use the computer instead of the camera? Not down in the sanctuary, because the sanctuary doesn't have a camera hooked to it. And the reason I wanted to use our camera, Teresa, was because the sound system runs through it. Did any of you get the Awakened Band music I sent out earlier today and how great that sounded? Friends, we recorded that outside and it sounded that good. And the reason it was able to do that is because we are able to hook the camera directly to the sound system. So the sound system that comes into the camera comes directly from the board instead of ambient sound. That's why it sounded not the band sounded great because they're talented, but it definitely helped recording it that we were able to take sound directly from the board. We were not in a studio, certainly, and we were not in a controlled environment, and it still sounded that good, which tells you how well our hookup is working. I know about it's been at least a year ago, maybe longer, when we were talking about getting this new camera that we have been using for this. It was something that we did because we wanted to be able to have video for the website. And I got to tell you, that ended up being a God thing for sure. I am so thankful that we have that camera, because that's what enables us to do all the online stuff at the quality that we've got. It would be, not only would it be a lot harder, it would be a lot less quality. Picture quality would be different and sound quality would be different. Me here talking, my computer, my little computer that I carry around in, as you see me carried around in the sanctuary and stuff, that works fine for this. When we're doing music, to be able to take sound directly from the board is really good. What do you mean, Jan? Why is slow motion going on? I don't know what you mean. Is there a connection problem? My computer was acting up earlier, so maybe we're having a connection issue here. So, all right, I hope we're still working. Okay, so we're getting ready to jump into Daniel. We are in the second half of Daniel. We're going to be looking at chapter 10. If you guys want to follow along, open up your Bible. We're going to be reading kind of a section that talks about a lot of a perspective, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, a perspective on spiritual warfare and kind of how that functions. And so we're gonna this will be an interesting perspective. This is a little different. What we read tonight is a little bit different than some of the visions and things that we have read before, and not radically different, but it's a little bit of a different intention. And I think it will give us a nice perspective on how Daniel sort of looks at the world, or that may not be the right way to say that. Kind of the perspective Daniel has about how things are going on around him. Because understand, Daniel lives in a very difficult situation. We talked about that extensively, and I think I've I've talked you all into that Daniel is having a heck of a time. So, all right. So we're looking at Daniel chapter 10, and let's talk about this. All right, chapter 10, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of King Cyrus of Persia. All right, let's look at that right there. The last two nights have been about or during the reign of Belshazzar. And we remember he was the king in the middle during the story section of Daniel. He was the king who literally saw the writing on the wall, very literally, had a disembodied hand that came and started writing on the wall. And, he things didn't work out so well for Belshazzar. But tonight, we're on to a new guy. The third year of King Cyrus of Persia. Now, if you'll remember, I believe this is the first time we've heard his name, because the three kings from the story section of Daniel, the first half of Daniel, it was Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian. It was Belshazzar, and I think he was Babylonian. I don't even remember which one he was because he didn't last very long. And then it was Darius, who was a Mede. And now we have the Persians. So now we're on to our third empire who have conquered them. And again, this is all in Daniel's lifetime. So within a period of, less than 100 years, this area had been conquered by three different nations. It was conquered by the Babylonians, it was conquered by the Medes, and it was conquered by the Persians. So these Israelites who are sort of left as a remnant inside of this empire keep having to deal with a different controlling power. I don't know how you want to say that. It's a different country was in charge because they came through and kicked out the old one. And what they found was when these other countries would come in and take over, they would have huge problems. Like the Persians would have had huge problems with the Medes. But the Israelites could care less. The Israelites, they aren't going to fight to save the Medes, and they're really not going to fight the Persians because there's no way they could defeat them. So what the Israelites figured out early on is that by cooperating somewhat with the powers that be, were like, look, you guys willing to not be too much trouble, and we'll get along here. We see the exact same thing going on, that exact dynamic going on in the Gospels. This is huge during the trial of Jesus. And what does Pontius Pilate keep saying? I got to keep this under control. Look, I tell you what. If I crucify Jesus, will you guys settle? Will you guys calm down? Because if we don't, the Caesars in Rome are going to get sick of this, and then we're all going to be dead. So I got to get you guys to calm down. So Pilate was feeling in the New Testament, I know I'm kind of jumping through stories here, but Pilate in the New Testament, who was very much just trying to get everybody to settle. So the religious leaders who would have been the Jewish folks at that time, and the leaders in the synagogue and the rabbis and all that, when they were all mad at Jesus and they wanted him crucified, they kept making problems. And you see this really clearly in the Gospel of John when the leaders of the synagogue were like, look, if you don't deal with this Jesus guy, then you're no friend of Caesar. And Pilate was like, I don't know that that's right. And that's where that whole thing comes from. So Pilate, man, poor guy stuck in the middle. If there's one guy, look, I know Pilate did some horrible things, but I look at Pilate a lot like I look at Judas sometimes. Pilate is kind of stuck in the middle, and he's got to do something because everybody's mad at him. The religious leaders are mad at him. The followers of Jesus are mad at him. And the whole time he's going, okay, what can I do to make sure a riot don't happen? That's what Pilate's down to. It's the best he can do. Well, in many ways, it's exactly the same thing that's going on here. If we can just keep the peace, things will go a lot easier for us. And what happens is when controlled people realize, yeah, that's right, Tim. Unrest is very bad for the economy. And what they eventually realized is, if we squeak loud enough, we get some oil. The squeaky wheel, and that's kind of what they wanted. And so what the Israelites ended up doing was they began to use that. That's exactly what the religious leaders were doing, trying to get Pilate to turn against Jesus. It was exactly the same thing. They're like, well, we don't want to say we're going to make trouble, but we're going to make trouble if you don't do something about this. And that's what they were saying about Jesus. And that's why Pilate sort of had his arm twisted behind his back. He had to do something because that was the situation that the people were living under for a long, long time by the time Jesus showed up. Hey, Eric, better late than never, buddy. We're glad you're here. So that was kind of the powder keg they were living under. And that started during the exile, and it was still very much enforced when the Romans took over later under the time of Jesus. Okay, so that's a whole history lesson we got out of a half of a verse. That's why we never get through all this stuff. All right, so Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. So in the third year of the reign of King Cyrus of Persia, Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, so they identify him by his it would have been his Babylonian name. Chances are by this point, because remember, Daniel was a Jewish person, an Israelite who was trained up in the ways of Babylon. We read that early in the book, the story section of Daniel. Actually, by the time they get to King Cyrus of Persia, he don't know the difference. He probably can't tell the difference. He's just one of the not Persian guys. And that's kind of how King Cyrus probably dealt with it. So whether it was, his Hebrew name, Daniel, or his Babylonian name, Belteshazzar, King Cyrus was like, 6 or half dozen. I could care less. Okay. So Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, had another vision. He understood that the vision concerned events certain to happen in the future, times of war and great hardship. All right, that's sort of the introduction. Notice how the pronouns are about to change. When this vision came to me, okay, so before it was somebody saying, okay, this is Daniel, and here's who he was, and blah, blah, blah. And now this is his account. So this is sort of his testimony. And we've seen that in all the vision statements that have been made so far. When this vision came to me, I, Daniel, had been in mourning for 3 whole weeks. Okay, so he'd been in mourning for 3 whole weeks. And here's some of the practices that people of this time would do while they were in mourning. All that time I had eaten no rich food, no meat or wine across my lips. I used no fragrant lotions until those 3 weeks had passed. So on April 23rd, so very specific date, I was standing on the bank of the great Tigris River. Again, after being in mourning for 3 weeks. And I don't know that I don't know that we're ever told why he was in mourning. So somebody from Daniel's family, somebody Daniel loved, whoever, passed away. And could have been Darius, because he and the King Darius seemed to be pretty close. But whatever reason, he was in mourning for 3 weeks. So as he kind of walked through this season of prayer and fasting and recovery and mourning, his heart, his mind, and his soul were very open. And because of that, he had a vision. So on April 23rd, I was standing on the bank of the great Tigris River. I looked up and saw a man dressed in linen clothing with a belt of pure gold around his waist. His body looked like a precious gem. His face flashed like lightning, and his eyes flamed like torches. His arms and feet shone like polished bronze, and his voice roared like a vast multitude of people. It's quite a guy he saw, whoever this was. So he saw this guy, a guy with a pretty distinct appearance. I think we could all agree. And somebody who would have made a distinct impression upon seeing him. Because it was very impressive to look at, the belt of pure gold, body like a precious gem, a shining face with lightning. I mean, we're having no problem picturing that right now. Flaming eyes and bronze arms and feet, and apparently a very loud and commanding voice. Okay, so that's who he saw. Now, verse 7. Only I, Daniel, saw this vision. The men with me saw nothing, but they were terrified and ran away to hide. Okay, so Daniel was the only one who was having this particular experience. He was the only one who how can I say this? Sort of had his spiritual eye opened, I guess we could say. The other guys, and again, interesting thing about this is men that gathered together to pray. So don't miss the significance of that, men. Men need to gather together to pray and to be in prayer for each other, and how important that is. Again, it's important for everybody to pray. I'm a huge proponent for everybody to go pray. Okay, so don't get me wrong about that. But in the midst of all these things, don't miss the significance of men praying together, because that's what was going on. Now, once this vision started, Daniel was the only one having it, so it wasn't like this guy appeared to everybody. However, everybody who was there was clearly aware that something was happening, because it's not very often that people run away to hide from nothing. So everybody was kind of freaking out, and they were very intimidated, and they ran and they hid. Even though they couldn't see anything, they were clearly aware something was going on. Okay, so verse 8. So I was left there all alone to see this amazing vision. Amazing. Amazing is a pretty good word. Okay, so there you see this amazing vision. My strength left me. My face grew deathly pale, and I felt very weak. So during this experience, he was really engaged, but it took a lot out of him. I mean, this was something that exhausted him while it's going on. Probably a lot like live streaming takes a lot out of you to be on like this for an hour. And so during this experience, Daniel, he just kind of, I don't want to say he was discouraged, because I don't get that impression. It was just a physically draining experience to be in the presence of this person who was quite a sight to behold. Okay, verse 9. Then I heard the man speak, and when I heard the sound of his voice, I fainted. Major failure in paying attention. I think we all would agree that fainting is the exact opposite of paying attention. So I think we get that. But he fainted. Now, he fainted, and I think the reason that Daniel did that was because this experience was extreme. Now, I know that we modern day, very, very cerebral, very thought through, very planned, very reserved Americans that we are, we shy away from this kind of stuff. We shy away from these kind of experiences. We tend to discount them. We tend to, say that they're that's what crazy people do, or that's what, people who drink too many energy drinks like Amy did. That's what they do. I'm not so sure that rational people actually do this. But what Daniel's saying is, look, I was completely in my right mind. I had been praying and fasting and preparing. My heart was prepared. My soul was prepared. My mind was prepared. And when the representative of God showed up with his magnificent appearance and he started speaking to me, even though I was completely prepared, I dropped. I passed out. Because this was very intense. It was a very intense experience of God. And I hope that multiple times in your life you've had that experience. Maybe not that you passed out. I don't want that. But you had a very intense moment where you were very aware of just how present God was. And I hope that has come to you and encouraged you at a time when you could just really use a boost, I guess we could say. And so that was the experience that Daniel had. Just a very, very intense experience of God being present. Yeah, he did the same thing with Gabriel. That's right, Cheryl. And so these experiences are very intense. Now, you may think, well, I've passed out a few times. I've passed out a few times. Not ever from praying, but from other things that have been going on. Not exactly an experience I was all that, excited about or whatever. So we think, why does Daniel keep seeking this out? Because clearly fasting, praying, mourning, withholding creature comforts, preparing, getting together with his friends, probably Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and a few other guys. They're praying. And then he had this experience. why is he seeking that out? And the reason he's seeking it out is continue to remember, what is Daniel's goal? What does Daniel want to have happen? Daniel is in a season of the world. They've just been occupied by their third foreign ruler in one lifetime, in one generation. Because Daniel had interacted with three different, this is his fourth king, Cyrus be the fourth king. There was Nebuchadnezzar, there was Belshazzar, Darius, and now Cyrus. So they were under their fourth occupying force. They are in great danger of losing the connection to their heritage, their connection to their traditions, their connection to their belief system, their connection to what was meaningful. And they were in danger of losing that. And Daniel said, look, if I'm the only one that's got to stand in the gap here, then I'm going to do that. And so again, and I know I said this last night, and I'm going to reiterate it tonight, and odds are real good I'm going to say it again tomorrow night. God bless Daniel. I don't know that the guy gets credit for all he did. Yeah, he spent a night in the lion's den, and my hat's off to him for that, but he really did a lot. And he really, sustained the people through a lot of very difficult circumstances. Certainly, Scott, he was awestruck, no doubt about that. And Tina and Angie, I'm sure that fasting may have made him a bit weaker, obviously. But I also think that it doesn't say he was fasting. He just wasn't eating rich food. He was probably back to his vegetables and water that we read about during the story portion of Daniel. But I think more, maybe not as physically weak, but he was really very spiritually in tune and very spiritually open to having an interaction with God, which clearly he had when this amazing character showed up. So, all right. So the guy started talking to him, and Daniel passed out. So it didn't start off well. And then we went on. Okay. Verse 9. Then I heard the man speak, and when I heard the sound of his voice, I fainted. Cheryl says, I must admit he may not get the credit he is due because we have a tendency to remember the stories first. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole lot easier to do a children's sermon on Daniel in the lion's den than it is to talk about Daniel versus the spirit prince of Babylon. Okay, I no doubt about that. But what I'm telling you, the 35 people who are logged in here tonight, I hope all of you will have a new respect. I hope you learn more than this, but I hope one of the things you take away from this is a new respect for Daniel and his role in sustaining God's people, and be able to apply that to our day and age today, and the fact that we today have a responsibility to hand that faith off to the next generation, and just how incredibly important that is. We too may spend the night in the lion's den, but at the end of the day, as you can see, I hope you've learned through this study that while that was a great testimony to spend that night in the lion's den, that also is not the single most important thing Daniel did. It was certainly a part of what Daniel did. I mean, I'm not taking nothing away from the guy. And as important and amazing as that miracle is, that's not the most important thing he did. That was just that was a means to an end. And props to Daniel for that. Okay. Okay, so verse 9, and then I heard the man speak. When I heard the sound of his voice, I fainted and lay there with my face to the ground. So then drop straight down. Verse 10. Just then a hand touched me and lifted me. Is that how you would say that? If I was talking to you and you tripped and fell or passed out, and I helped you up, and later you were telling somebody about this, would you say, I was having a conversation with Pastor Tim, and I got so bored that I fell asleep and fell down, and then a hand helped me get up. It was amazing. Yeah, that's not how you would say that, especially if it was my hand. You would say, I was talking to Pastor Tim, and I got bored, and I fell asleep and dropped to the ground, and he helped me up. It was his hand to help me. You wouldn't say a hand. You would say this person's hand, unless this was another one of these kind of disembodied hands that come in and do something and kind of disappear. I don't know. If this was the same hand, maybe that was writing on the wall earlier in the story. I don't know. But it seems like a bizarre way to say that. And again, we have experienced Daniel's visions being a a bit on the bizarre side. Okay, so a hand touched me, lifted me, still trembling, to my hands and knees. So he's still, not exactly standing up, but at least he's up off the ground. Verse 11. And the man said to me, he doesn't mention this, but probably also hoping he doesn't pass out this time. And the man said to me, Daniel, now listen to this. Daniel, you are very precious to God. Precious. Daniel, you are very precious to God. It's an interesting word, don't you think? For somebody who looks like the way this guy looks, with his bronze arms and legs and fiery eyeballs and a voice like a explosion, for him to say, use the word precious. What do you think about that? Jump in the comments and talk about that. You are very precious to God. I think that's when I was kind of skimming through this earlier, getting ready for tonight. That word jumped out at me. That's not a word I would have expected to be used at this point. And look, I agree with Teresa. Daniel's entire life was a witness and tribute to God, no doubt about it. Daniel and God were tight at the beginning, all through the story, clear to the end. And that is the second time he was called precious, and I think that's going to come up again later in this reading. It's just not the word. I'm picturing, like here's a really bad example. I'm picturing, like the Terminator when he's trying to in Terminator 2 when he's trying to get the mom to come with him, and he's like, "Come with me if you want to live." I'm trying to picture Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator saying, "You are very precious. Please come with me." I mean, it just doesn't sound right. That's just not the way we would expect somebody like that to speak. Yet that's clearly what the message was, because that's what the guy says. I mean, if you're going to use an off-the-wall word like that, clearly that's the word you meant. And what a powerful statement. I mean, wouldn't you like to hear somebody say, a representative from God say that to you? You are very precious to God. Precious. That's a wonderful word. Yeah. Cheryl and Teresa, you're both right. It is a very endearing comment, especially coming from God, because we use that to speak to our children. It's the highest of compliments, Christina. You're certainly correct. And again, after his voice made him pass out, and now he's still on his hands and knees. He hasn't even, I mean, by the way, told, I haven't gotten up yet. And that's the word that's used, precious. Honestly, Daniel, if I was Daniel, I would have had a hard time hearing the rest of the message, because I'd have been pretty caught up on that precious word. I'd been pretty caught up on that. And I think any of you who are going to be honest realize you would be too. Daniel, you are very precious to God, so listen carefully to what I have to say. What I have to say to you. Stand up, for I have been sent to you. That's how precious you are, that you're getting a personal message from Mr. Bronze Arms here. And that's a pretty high honor that God sent a message in this way to you, and a message so important that you get it, that we even scared away your buddies, and they're hiding even though they didn't see me. Okay, when he said this to me, I stood up, still trembling. Okay, we're going to use precious, and we're going to say there's a message and something I need to hear. So Daniel, out of respect, he stands. Then he said, and again, this is adding to the precious idea. Then he said, don't be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come in answer to your prayers. Now, we were talking about fantastic verses in the Bible. I give you that one. Don't be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come in answer to your prayers. Well, okay. That's incredible. I would love to pull Daniel's name out of there and stick Tim in there. Don't be afraid, Tim. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come in answer to your prayers. That's fantastic. Now, the implication here is that Daniel was praying for understanding and to humble himself before God. Okay, so let's not get the cart too far out in front of the horse. God and Daniel were pretty close. I think I've made my case on that pretty clear. But Daniel was praying. I want to be a good leader. I want to be a good influence. I want to be a good witness. I want to be a good man. I want to be good in whatever I'm doing. I want to be able to pass off faith in you to further generations. I'm going to put the idea of proclaiming your words above my own well-being. That's really the only way you're going to be able to convert 2 foreign kings like Daniel did. And so Daniel did the work, put in the effort, put in the persistent praying and preparation, prepared himself physically with the fasting and the mourning and the creature comforts and all that. He put in the work to put out the influence to all the people. During the story portion, we said, Darius set up this thing that when the music started to play, everybody had to pray to the statue. Daniel said, "Nope, that ain't gonna happen." Thanks for praying, or thanks for playing. He wouldn't get involved in that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He surrounded himself with people like that who said, "Look, we just want to be clear. We ain't bound down to nothing else but God, and you could go ahead and throw us in this fiery furnace." So that was his friends. That's who he surrounded himself with. That's what he was putting together. That's what he had prepared. And because of all this preparation, Daniel and God were very close. So when Daniel prayed this prayer, God heard his prayer. Because Daniel, and it wasn't that God was listening to Daniel because Daniel was faithful. I don't want to give that. I don't want that to be your impression. What I want you to see is that because Daniel bent his will and bent his life to yield to God this completely, his prayers and God's will meshed perfectly. So when Daniel was praying, God was saying, "This guy and I are in sync. We are together." And God said, "It is going to be a privilege to answer those prayers because that's my plan." That's why Daniel got heard. It wasn't because he was good and God said, "Well, I guess I'll have to do what Daniel said because he's the biggest kiss up in the class." That's not at all what this is. It's because Daniel's will and God's will were so much hand in hand that when Daniel asked for it, God was able to say, "I'm one step ahead of you, pal." And that's what's going on here. Now, it did start off this chapter by saying that God, It did start off the chapter by saying that Daniel was in mourning. So clearly something had gone wrong. We're not told exactly what the period of mourning was for, and that's kind of irrelevant. So we know that not everything was going perfectly. So Daniel's first question, again, may have been, "Thanks for showing up. Where have you been?" Sort of Job's question. Where have you been? So let's find out where the guy has been. Verse 13. You're going to like this. "But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way." So I've been trying to get here for 3 weeks, which, if you'll look back, that is the exact amount of time Daniel had been fasting and praying. Go back to verse 3. He said, 3 weeks I've been fasting, praying, and not using lotions or anything like that. For 3 weeks I was doing that. So then in verse 13, the guy says, "Well, for 21 days, aka 3 weeks, I've been trying to get here, but the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way." So in the spiritual realm, this guy was blocking my way. Now you may ask yourself, first of all, what is the spirit prince of Persia? And second, how strong was he? We'll go back to the description of this guy. The guy had bronze arms and legs. He had fire in his eye sockets. He had a commanding, booming voice. What else did he have here? His body was like a precious gem. His face flashed like lightning. I mean, this guy's pretty fearsome. Yet the spirit prince of Persia was able to keep him out. So this messenger with the bronze arms said, "I really need to get here. God asked me to go to Daniel." And for 3 weeks, the spirit in the spiritual realm, the spirit prince of Persia said, "No access to you, Mr. Bronze Arms. And so Bronze Arm said, all right, that's the way you want to play this. Hey, Michael, I need some help. So here's who we get. Okay, so let's go back to verse 13. But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the king of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels. Okay, so this Mr. Bronze Arms is like a low class messenger. Like, I'm not low class. He's like a low level messenger. He's simply coming to speak a word of truth at a time when Daniel needed it. They wouldn't let him in, so Bronze Arms said, "Okay, fine. If that's how you want to play this, you could talk to my big brother." Now, if you've ever looked up the icon for Archangel Michael, if you've looked up the Catholic icon of the Archangel Michael, he's the angel who's always standing with his foot on a dragon's head with a spear run through it. That's Michael. Friends, you don't mess with Michael. He tends to get his way. All right. So, and yet again, another just classic example of Bible understatement comes next. Okay, so let's go back to verse 13, and let me show you just how understated this is. But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me. And I left him there with the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. Amazingly, when Michael showed up, he quit blocking my way. I mean, who'd have thought that was going to happen, right? You know, Mr. Michael, who puts his foot on dragons' heads and runs spears through the skull. What happened to the spirit prince of Persia? Well, we know he wasn't dead because he's gonna come back again. But apparently, the Archangel Michael was, shall we say, very convincing to say, this Mr. Bronze Arms here is my boy, and you're gonna let him in. And the spirit prince was like, I would be happy to. So I guess the Archangel Michael just makes it a very compelling argument that I'm sure involved a spear. I'm just guessing on that one. Okay, so once the spirit prince was out of the way, and because the Archangel Michael told him he was out of the way, we come to verse 14. Now this is Bronze Arm speaking again. Now I am here to explain what will happen to your people in the future, for this vision concerns a time yet to come. So Bronze, you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Bronze Arms, because the guy doesn't have a name. I could call him Gold Belt, but that doesn't sound as cool. I like Bronze Arms. So, Amy, I will get to that question. I will get to actually both of your questions there when we're finished. Okay, I will come back to them. If I don't, ask me again. Okay. Okay. So Bronze Arms shows up, and he comes to Daniel, and he says, "I've come to speak to you about a future time." Which again, that's what Daniel was asking for, because remember, his prayers were heard in heaven, and what were those prayers? Going back up to verse 12 was prayer for understanding, and he humbled himself before God. And Bronze Arms says, "Okay, I'm here to let you in on this." So, verse 15. While he was speaking to me, I looked down at the ground, unable to say a word. Then the one who looked like a man, again, I'm assuming that's Bronze Arms, touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing in front of me, I am filled with anguish because of the vision I have seen, my Lord, and I am very weak. How can someone like me, your servant, talk to you, my Lord? Now, Daniel is, okay, I mean, he's very intimidated by this guy. He passed out when he started to talk. He's shaking. His knees are knocking together. I mean, this is a pretty fearsome person here. Yet the spirit prince of Babylon, of Persia, was able to keep him out. Yet when Michael showed up, the spirit prince says, "Welcome, Mr. Bronze Arms," and it was kind of over at that point. So that tells you about the authority of Bronze Arms, tells you about the power of the spirit prince of Persia, and also tells you about the authority of Archangel Michael. You kind of see how, does that all make sense? Daniel is just can't hardly contain himself because he's so I don't think afraid is the right word. just very much in awe. I think Scott, you mentioned being in awe. He was absolutely awestruck by this guy. And so Daniel was that impressed with him, yet that guy was able to be repelled by the spirit prince of Persia, because the spirit prince of Persia was apparently more powerful than bronze arms. And the spirit prince of Persia was able to be bossed around by Archangel Michael. And by bossed around, I probably mean threatened, would be my guess. So that just tells you about the hierarchy of authority and power we're dealing with here. So when Michael showed up and said something, there was really nothing else to talk about. Okay. Verse 16. Then the one who looked like a man, that's bronze arms, touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. He's speaking again. I said to the one standing in front of me, I am filled with anguish because of the vision I've seen, my Lord, and I am very weak. How could someone like me, your servant, talk to you, my Lord? My strength is gone. I can barely breathe. So he's intimidated. Verse 18. I think I read those verses twice. Now we're at verse 18. Then the one who looked like a man touched me again, and I felt my strength returning. So bronze arms touched him, and Daniel began to recover his strength. His confidence began to come back. He basically, the way he describes this, he's almost having a panic attack. That feeling you can't get your breath. But when bronze arms touched him, he began to recover and feel strengthened. So then the one who looked like a man touched me again. I felt my strength returning. And listen to what bronze arms says. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. He said, don't be afraid, he said, for you are very precious to God. There's that word again. Precious. Peace. Be encouraged. Be strong. As he spoke these words to me, I suddenly felt stronger. Well, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he feel stronger? These are beautiful words spoken by this amazing person, this amazing whatever he is. Precious. Be strong. Be encouraged. This is a pep talk, literally a pep talk of biblical proportions. So he began to stand up, and now he was strengthened. And so as he spoke these words to me, I suddenly felt stronger and said to him, please speak to me, Lord. Before he was like, the guy started speaking and he passed out. And in this short time, after being encouraged twice by bronze arms, now he's like, dude, don't be quiet. Lay it on me. Let's do this. And he's saying, talk to me. Spill the beans here, pal. Let's hear it. Please speak to me, my Lord, for you have strengthened me. He said, do you know why I have come? Now, that is a fascinating question. Do you know why I have come? Now, he's going to go on to say what he's going to do. He is going to join the fight against the spirit prince of Persia. But that's an interesting question, because bronze arms already told him why he was there. He says, I'm here because God sent me to you. Directly to you. For 21 days, I fought with the spirit prince of Persia until my big brother Michael came along and told him he was done fighting. And now I'm here. Do you know why I've come? I've called you precious twice. I've encouraged you. Now I'm giving you a word of hope. I'm building you up. Do you know why I've come? My friends, if God ever asks you that question, do you know why I'm here? Make sure you know why. You're here because he's here because you matter. And bronze arms is here because God asked him to come. He replied, do you know why I've come? Soon I must return to fight against the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. And after that spirit prince of the kingdom of Greece, I'm sorry, I messed that whole sentence up. Soon I must return to fight against the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. And after that, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Greece will come. What is he saying here? He's saying, Daniel, you and I are on the same side. I'm on your side. You have joined the good guys in this fight. And guess what? So is this guy. So is Mr. Bronze Arms here. You know, we're on the same side. I'm here to encourage you because you and I are fighting this together. You're not in this fight alone. You know, Cyrus is who Cyrus is. And, you know, things are difficult. I get that. But I want you to know that you're not doing this by yourself. And I don't want you to ever think that. And I'm here to make sure you understand that. My friends, if there's a message that translates beautifully to our day and age, it's this one. I know we would all like to see Mr. Bronze Arms comes and talk to us like that. I mean, we would all appreciate that. That doesn't always happen, but the message is still there. God is here because we're fighting on the same side. And if we're going to align ourselves with his will, we are on the same side. And when these spirit princes of all these forces from the world that are troublesome and injurious and leading people astray, doing things to hurt people, causing selfishness, causing destruction and mayhem, wrecking families, wrecking situations, tempting people to do things they know they shouldn't do, on and on and on. Bronze Arms is here to say we're fighting on the same side. All this is a word of encouragement, because obviously the spirit prince of Persia is not dead yet. Michael must not have killed him, even if Michael did literally put the fear of God in him. But that spirit prince is still there. So the only thing Bronze Arms came in to do was to tell Daniel, keep fighting the good fight, my man. Keep it up. And Daniel said, I am encouraged. Now, Bronze Arms didn't have much good to say. Yeah, we're going to take down the spirit prince of Persia, and there's going to be another one coming. The one of the Greeks. The Romans are coming. But it's all right, because we're still on the same side. And God's going to send another. And that one's going to break the stranglehold of a lot of evil things in this world. So be encouraged. This entire chapter, this entire vision is about one single thing. That God sent this bronze-armed person on a mission to go tell Daniel that his prayers are being heard. That's it. Nothing changes here. You know, I told you that Michael stabs dragons and demons in the head, but he doesn't do that to this guy yet. You know, the spirit prince of Persia didn't get stabbed in the head yet. He's going to, but it hasn't happened yet. So the only reason that all of this happens is so that God can send an encouraging word to one man who's leading a literal rebellion in the middle of all this chaos. And that's Daniel. So my friends, what I want you to take from this lesson tonight, from Daniel chapter 10, is that keep your eyes open. Now you may think, look, if God sent somebody to stand in front of me with bronze arms and legs and a gold belt and a lightning face and fire eyes and a booming voice, I doubt I would miss that. You'd be surprised what you can miss. You'd be real surprised what you can miss if you get over involved or get just very distracted in what's going on. You could be really amazed what you can miss, and you don't want to miss that. If Bronze Arms, got into a 3-week fight with the Spirit Prince to come and say something to you, so much so that his big brother Michael had to come and fit, put an end to it so he could get in to speak to you. If there's a message God wants to give you that's important, for goodness sake, pay attention. Daniel was ready to hear this. He had done the preparation. He'd done the work. He prayed the prayers. He had his boys there with him. Everybody was gathered. And this word of encouragement came because God sent it. And I will tell you beyond any shadow of a doubt, with every fiber of my being, I still firmly believe that God is sending bronze-armed people all around to encourage those who are going to do exactly what Daniel did. And let's go back up here. Let me quote this. If you're going to pray to understand and humble yourself before God, then God's going to have something to say to you. And it's going to be good. So many times when God delivers a message, especially in the Old Testament, it's always given the connotation of being so negative. Friends, what Bronze Arm says here is extremely positive. And he went to great lengths to be here to deliver this encouraging word to Daniel. And I firmly believe that God is still sending these messages. It's up to us to make sure we're not missing them. So, all right, let's read Bronze Arm's last word, and then I'm going to jump on Amy's 2 questions here. And everybody type some in the comments. I haven't heard anybody saying for a while, and I sure hope that you guys heard what I said. So I hope that the connection hasn't died and you missed me. Verse 21, meanwhile, I tell you what is written in the book of truth. Okay, so that's what Bronze Arms is delivering as a message from the book of truth. And he says, no one helps me against these spirit princes except Michael, your spirit prince. Michael is your spirit prince. So the kingdom of Persia has a spirit prince. The kingdom of the Romans have a spirit prince. I'm here, but you got a spirit prince too. And his name is Michael. And Michael don't mess around. All right. So Michael don't mess around. So keep that in mind. All right. Let me answer Amy's 2 questions, and then I'll give you, and anybody else who wants to ask a question, jump on here. First of all, she says, oh, sorry. Hang on a second. I lost it. I wonder what heaven is like. So do I. I've never been there, but it sure sounds great. Another book that's very similar to this one is the book of Revelation. And many people have witnessed heaven, seen heaven, whatever. We have one written account of the Bible of what heaven will be like. And it's described by John in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verses 1-4. And what he tells us in those is he says, in heaven, you think about everything he could see in heaven. It was amazing, crystal sea and on, just paradise, wonderful. And when John looked into heaven, and he only had like 2 sentences because he's kind of scratching notes as he goes, what he saw when Jesus showed him heaven, what struck him the most, out of everything he actually could see, what struck him the most is what wasn't there. Now, my friends, think about that. If any of you have ever been on a vacation, been on a trip somewhere, suppose you're going to take a lifelong, for all your life, you wanted to go on a cruise to Alaska. And it's something you've always wanted to do. It's going to be beautiful. I'm so excited. And you go on the trip. You have a wonderful time. Everything goes perfectly. You come home and I say, hey, welcome back. How was your trip? Are you going to look me in the eye and say, well, you're not going to believe this, there were no palm trees in Alaska? That's not what you're going to say. You're going to tell me what you actually saw. You're not going to tell me what you didn't see, unless what you didn't see was so strikingly absent that its absence was unmistakable. And when John has a chance to describe heaven to us, he tells us 4 things that won't be there. And they were so amazingly absent that their absence shined brighter than what was actually there. And he said, here's the 4 things I missed. There was no death, no sorrow, no crying, no pain. Those things were so glaringly absent in heaven that's what John told us. Not flying cars, not the ability to fly, not unending pasta bars, none of that stuff. He said, what I didn't see was what struck out to me the most. And there was no death, no sorrow, no crying, and no pain. If you ask me, based on what I've seen in my 45 years, that sounds pretty darn good to me. So that's what heaven is like. Your other question, what is an archangel? An archangel would be what we would consider to be like a foreman, okay? Like a foreman at a job. They're not the boss, but they have more authority than the regular workers. The regular workers would be like the angels, and the angels who are God's messengers, the next step up would be the archangels. And there are a couple of those, and I don't know what the whole history of them is. I know obviously Michael's one of them. I think Gabriel is another one, but they have more power and authority than your regular class of angels. But they obviously aren't the guy. They don't run the show. They're just there as sort of the foremans on the job, and they have more power and authority. What's going on? In Paradise Lost, Michael is the leader of the army of angels loyal to God against the forces of Satan. He defeats Satan in single combat and wounds him in the side. Yes. Again, Michael's not a guy to mess with. So, all right, cool. All right, who's enjoying Daniel? This is so weird in that I get no feedback from you as far as your faces. I noticed that on Sunday morning I'm always kind of reading what's going on in the congregation, and it's so hard because my face is the only one I can see here. Was Lucifer an archangel or just a regular one? I probably have to say he was an archangel, and actually that goes back to the book of Job, in that Satan was the accuser. I mean, he was in the heavenly court. He was the one that came along and said, and God was like, "Hey, where you been?" I mean, it was just a very interesting conversation between the two of them, and so I would call him an archangel. And he decided he wanted to be the guy instead of being the archangel, and God was like, "No, I think I'll be the guy, but thanks though." And that didn't go over well. So, all right, cool. All right, guys. Good. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying this. I'm kind of glad we didn't skip the second half of the book of Daniel. I'm kind of mad at myself for almost missing that. I know I said that last night, but there's a lot of good content here we would have missed out on had we not gone in this direction. So I'm glad we're doing it. So, and cool. Anybody else got anything you want to say? I couldn't go a whole episode and not show this to you because this is awesome. What do you guys think of that? Isn't that cool? To whoever gave that to me, I really, really appreciate it. And I was talking today about a possibility of finding a place to hang it in here. I'd love to be able to hang it behind me so you could see it, but I can't hang it on the window. So I'm going to have to think about how we're going to do that. So Daniel is a varied trip. Yes, Joe, he is. And he has a lot of different kind of things going on in his book. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad you enjoy it. Again, I can't believe that so many 37 people in here right now, and I can't really believe it. And appreciate you guys coming out to hear my take on this stuff. And thank you, Teresa. And Kevin, I'm glad you're here, buddy, and want you to stay safe too. Look at the past chats. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. In fact, we got a couple of them that were over 100 watches. Cheryl, strange thought. I wonder if God loves Satan just the same as he would love a child on the wrong path. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Satan is where he is because that's where Satan has chosen to be, not because God put him there. So I do believe that even though the predictions don't look good for him, that God would welcome Satan home if he was really going to come back. I believe that. God did not assign him there. Satan chose to be there in rebellion of God, and that's not a place you should ever choose to be. So, yep. Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Marcia. Marcia, you're getting really proficient at these YouTube comments. I'm really proud of you. Cheryl, I'm glad you and Jack are here. It's good to see. I get to see Jack today. I gave him an elbow bump. He was looking at hanging some pictures out here in the hallway. So some of these projects that have taken months longer than they should have, we're kind of finishing up. So thank you, Tina. I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Eric. I'm glad you're here too. And I appreciate you all coming out. So, well, tomorrow night, tomorrow's Friday, I think, right? Tomorrow we're going to be looking at Daniel chapter 11, and we're going to continue that. And our hope is then to start on this book next week. So come Sunday, please come. I know two of you got books already, got physical copies of books already. But if you want a physical copy, I'm hoping they'll be here by then. And we'll be able to pass those out on Sunday. So you're welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Joe, that's why hell is so painful, because it's our choice and not anyone else. That's right. The blame and responsibility fall on the people who land there, not on God. That's one of the things that people try to put on God all the time. Well, if he loves everybody, why is he sending them to hell? No, he doesn't. He lets them choose to go there if that's what they want. Doesn't recommend that, clearly. I mean, the whole Jesus event is how far God's willing to go to give an off-ramp to the highway to hell. But that's obviously not a path everybody wants to walk. And that's unfortunate, because and the reason they don't is because they have been betrayed by these spirit princes. that held out bronze arms for so long. So, all right, my friends, I think we have come to that time. Again, my friends, you honor me with your presence. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you sharing your evening with me, and I look forward to this all day. So, and thank you, Trina. I do try. So, all right, thanks, Teresa. Hey, you guys have a great night. I love you all very much. Everybody, go and get a good night's sleep tonight. And come back tomorrow night. We'll do it again. And y'all know what y'all need to go do now, right? Everybody follow Joe Sutton. Go wash those hands. You're welcome, Amy. Have a great night, everybody.